Hey, y'all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and I'm here with Jonathan.
Hey, yo.
We've got much to talk about today. We got some Star Wars stuff, some news from Sophie Turner. She's getting back into the acting game. Denzel Washington, and a lot of World of Warcraft news. Let's get started with our Geek question of the week. Jonathan, what is an underrated 90s movie that people should be checking out?
Underrated 90s movie. That's hard because there's so many good 90s movies that just pop out in your head. You're like, wait, I need one that was good that maybe a lot of people didn't see. And I know typically I would steer towards geek movies, but the one I'm thinking of is actually like an action thriller kind of suspense movie. And when we were younger, we used to watch a lot of more like scary movies, at least more than I do now. This one isn't so scary, but it's called A Simple Plan. Remember that?
So good.
I was just trying to explain this story because I couldn't remember even now I can't remember the whole plot of the story, but more or less a plane crashes. These guys find it. There's just duffel bags of cash and they live in a small town. And it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Somebody's probably going to come for the money. I think they were already going through like financial hard times, so they can't make it obvious that they all of a sudden have this surplus of money to fix all their problems. And then they also might not trust each other completely anymore because, he might double cross me and keep all the money for himself. And I believe it's two brothers. One's kind of a wild card and the other one's more straight and narrow.
One of them's a bit simple. And I believe that was played by Billy Bob Thornton or Bill Paxton. One of those two. Maybe it's both those actors, actually.
Those are the two actors, yeah.
What a good movie. And I don't remember the director of that movie, but I know that they tried to make it like a Coen Brothers movie. So a lot of times it's talked about, like, when you're talking about Coen Brothers movies, we're like, if you like Coen Brothers, check out A Simple Plan. That is a really, really good one.
Yeah. What's yours?
First off, I think that could be a series. Everything could be a series now. It's like my go-to saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is far less serious, Jonathan. Mine is a movie that everybody likes to bash on, but you know what? It's a solid flick and has an excellent song, okay? I'm going to go with Wild Wild West with Will Smith.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Those were, I say those as if there was many. I don't remember. Just the one. Just one. Okay. Yeah. No, it was good. It was fun. It was definitely a Will Smith movie, which almost everything he does has the same kind of vibe. It's family friendly and fun with a little bit of action and comedy in it. So yeah, that's a good pick.
To me, I think it's so underrated because I think if it was released today, people would have been talking about franchises. I think it could have been a Pirates of the Caribbean style franchise where we're watching Calvin Klein, I can't remember whatever Calvin Klein, doing different things in Grants USA. Like, I think that would be heck of fun. And just like random robot spider and stuff. To me, it was a blast. Don't take it seriously. Just come with some popcorn and some soda and enjoy the watch, I think. And again, the song is very good.
Yeah. And they did have that little splash of sci-fi with this like industrial, revolution technology. It was like, this is, technologies that were kind of lost in the process or whatever. Like, that's a good way to just kind of pepper in some cool things that we haven't seen.
There's a ton of 007 spy tech that they had, but it was like set in 1800s, so it was a little bit, so very steampunk, very fun. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss the episode we got ahead of us. Jonathan, why don't you start us off with some movie news? What do you got for us?
Okay, we got all kinds of good news. So we did know that there was expected to be some more Star Wars movies coming out. Another trilogy supposedly was in the works. And it was, I think they actually, Disney announced that, or at some point said it probably wasn't going to be more Skywalker saga. Well, now it sounds like it is. It sounds like it's all going to be revolved around Rey. So they did say that Rey is kind of their, like, another keystone character for them. She's really valuable in the MCU, or in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. And
so they want to, it sounds like they want to make this next trilogy kind of wrap around her. So
they came out with a statement, or the director came out with a statement saying that, like, Rey is the most valuable character in Star Wars today. Do you agree with that statement just off the top of your head?
I'm trying to think of other characters right now that I think would be more valuable. I just don't think the story has to pivot on a single character. I think the galaxy is the most valuable, really. It's built out to where a lot of fun characters can come and go, and you don't really need to hang up on any one in particular. Yeah. I think she is a great character, and her especially her dynamic with Kylo Ren, who I think he is my favorite character. That opening scene from the first movie just nailed it. So I think the dynamic between the two of them makes for a great drama and a good story and just a lot of fun. But her personally, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe they're seeing a lot of other fans, requesting more Rey, or maybe she's doing really good in the parks or something like that. Because we know they have a lot of their movie represented in Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland.
I just feel like I think it's normal for Star Wars to pick somebody to hang the hat on. We look back at the old ones. We had Luke Skywalker was definitely like while we had such a great band of characters. We all love Han Solo and Princess Leia. It was definitely Luke Skywalker that was pushing the stories forward. And then when we go to the next one, it was definitely Anakin Skywalker, right? Even with Obi-Wan Kenobi being amazing. And so I think that's what they need. I think they're just trying to find that character. And in the newest trilogy, the sequel trilogy, it was Rey as well. So I think they're trying to find that character they can keep kind of going back to, that all the stories will come back to Rey's adventures in starting a new Jedi Temple, a Jedi Order. I know one thing that's hard is we compare it to the TV shows, and they even said like the TV shows have a lot more free range, so it's hard to compare themselves to that. But we have the Mandalorian, and I think even more importantly, we have Ahsoka, which I feel like Ahsoka is the character herself is the proper inheritance to the Skywalker saga than Rey is, because she actually was trained by Anakin, and actually kind of like falls in line to, she worked with Luke. She falls in line with that family line, I think more so than Rey would.
Yeah, I think it's to me, I think it's a bad idea for them to hang their hat on one character. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. And I have two good examples of where this is not done and it's proven very successful. Is one of our favorite shows, Star Trek or Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
Would you say it's a show about a captain on a ship? No, it's about a dynamic crew with a lot of characters, and they each carry their own weight in different ways. And if one leaves and another one comes on, it won't really disrupt the show. It'll change it a little bit. But, if they have to kill off Rey and bring in somebody else for some reason, it would derail it if she's the pinnacle character.
Yeah.
But if she's just one of, there's already a lot of very well developed, cool Star Wars characters that, they can have them all working together as a team and come and go. What was the other example? I had another one too that was perfect. SNL. If you're a fan of SNL, you don't stop watching it when one cast member, moves on and has a thriving, career or something like that. It's ongoing, with different members all the time, and they all, help share picking up the slack and everything. So
SNL oddly works well because there's a lot of times when veterans come back to do special cameos, or like right now, Sandberg is on there a lot right now, doing bits. So yeah, there are a lot of people who just return for the sake of returning, as an homage to the alumni, and respecting the foundation. So there could be something that with Star Wars as well. So where maybe we do see a Grogu pop up here and there as just a side character. I feel like Star Wars, and it from what we're seeing, because there's like some sources that kind of got leaky and stuff, they're saying that it's just kind of aimless right now. They're struggling to find the line to go forward with. And I think one of the biggest problems is there are too many people who have voices in Star Wars. I mean, shit, even fans, like the toxic fandom for Star Wars is unmatched. For the most part, like it's either you're a super fan of Star Wars or you absolutely hate it, and it's like, why can't we just like disagree and agree and still love lightsabers? I don't understand, but I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? There's too many people that are making decisions for Star Wars right now.
So if you were in that room and they said, you know what, we're just going to get one voice, Frank, what do you say? What's the direction of Star Wars moving forward? At least broad strokes, what way would you point it? What do you think should be the line that they start following?
Yeah, I think it has to be a post First Order world. I think they're right in doing that. I think Rey definitely needs to be a part of it. But I also think you need to focus, instead of having it being a main character, being the Jedi Order is your main character. And then have a band around that. To me, I think Guardians of the Galaxy. Like Rey could be your Star-Lord, sure, but by far everybody loves Rocket Raccoon, people like Groot. People are there for other reasons as well. And you're right with the Star Trek thing as well, but I think a captain is pretty strong character for the show, though. I think if you were to lose Janeway, Voyager wouldn't exist. But something like that, right? Yeah, it is very tough. I honestly, if they said, "Hey, Frank, what should we do?" I was like, "Go tell Dave Filoni to have the keys of the kingdom and just do it." He would put Ahsoka in charge and it would be fine. So yeah, what about you? What would you do if they said, "Hey, which way do you want to go?"
Well, I think like in the older, everything we've seen before, it's always this balance between good and evil, and this fight between red and blue or green, or however you want to see it. I think we should explore that gray area in between, and we've talked about the great Jedi.
Yeah.
And how, so I think it'd be great to see kind of a redemption arc from, we've seen like good to evil and evil to good, but one that doesn't really take sides. It's like a good person can do bad things sometimes and they're frustrated. And then a bad person decides, you know what, I need to, save people, but I'm saving people that are close to me. And sometimes I have to do bad things to save my people or something, there's a spectrum in there that we haven't really explored the middle ground of, I think.
They have tried that with the Acolyte, and they didn't successfully land that.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think if they were to given the problem with the Acolyte is they told you pretty quickly that like the Jedis did bad things for what they thought were good reasons. If they were to have a redemption arc last a lot longer, you're right on board. Yeah. So if we were to literally see a Jedi fall to the dark side or a dark side person, like give you the simple stuff that Star Wars fans all clearly love, but then show us that redeeming nature over time, I think is probably best.
That was so bad. I actually forgot about the Acolyte. It is very new.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good parts. I think the villain in it is fantastic, but yeah, it overall was pretty forgettable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Star Wars is banking on a lot on Rey right now, and it looks like there is turmoil within the studio. Hopefully, they just take their time and do it right. We have a lot of stuff actually coming along. We have Kinberg's trilogy, which we now learned is actually going to be focusing on Rey. We have Taika Waititi, Sean Levy working on stuff. There's a Lando series that is still kind of out there, Rogue Squadron series movie that's kind of out there. Who knows what comes out of all that?
Disney's got money. They know people like Star Wars, so they're just going to keep making content and like see what the fans like.
Yeah.
All right. In other news, we just heard recently that Sophie Turner is in talks to play Lara Croft in a new Amazon Tomb Raider series.
Yeah.
She plays Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones. What do you think about that? I think to me, she seems like she's just the right age. She's, young adult, not in her 30s yet, like old people like me or us. Gotta continue with us for a little while longer,
please.
But yeah, no, I think she's a good age for that character specifically, and we've seen she has a pretty good range in her acting with Game of Thrones. So I think it'd be kind of cool for her to break out of that more, I don't know, softer character, I think, and play someone who's got to do backflips and swinging across ropes and stuff like that.
When I was talking about this casting choice on TikTok, people were pretty down on it. And I think, and I admittedly was too at first. And I think a lot of that comes down to when we look at Sophie Turner, we think of Sansa Stark. And in the course of Sansa's character, you go from absolutely hating her, especially in the book. Oh my God. Absolutely hating her to then sympathizing her and seeing the value in her. And it famously, the beginning of Game of Thrones is better than the end of this Game of Thrones. And so I think that early Sansa kind of stuck with people, right? People kind of see her as the bratty girl. She's not that anymore. She's a very developed actress. I would like to see how she does with this. I don't know if she's going to handle this role very well. We've not seen anything that indicates that she would be good at this, I think.
Yeah, and I think that, like you're saying, is hard because the character that we got to know, we saw her and really got stuck in our mind, her as a bratty kid, but she evolved as a character into, like a strong potential queen or leader. But I mean, that's also just the character that we saw. So, we saw a range of acting abilities in her character development and that. So I think it would be great for her as an actress to be able to break into a different kind of role like this would provide. And if she can nail it, then that would be great. That would, have a very long lasting future for her, I think, and for the franchise. But obviously, I mean, it's not going to be an easy character to nail, I think. So it's going to take some work.
I like the idea of her getting another shot at another iconic role. Cause again, we're going back to Star Wars on this conversation, but looking at Harrison Ford, because he would have just been Han Solo if it wasn't for the fact that they gave him a shot at Tomb Raider. Indiana Jones. Yeah. Very much Tomb Raider.
Very similar. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that kind of like broke the mold a little bit and he was able to shake it up and become the legend he is today. And I think Sophie Turner has that path because right now, even when I'm describing her, I'm like, she's Sansa Stark. And people, oh, okay, yeah, Sansa Stark. And so this could be her chance to say, like, I could do other things and then break her into a leading actor down the road, somewhere else as well.
I was wondering, can you think of another character she's played, another movie she's been in?
I cannot, but I mean, like Jaime Lannister, I could think of only one other movie that he's been in, and everybody loves Jaime Lannister. Or I know Maisie, what's her name? It's not Maisie Ridley. That's Daisy Ridley from Star Wars. Oh, they're mixed up in my head now.
Oh,
But
Dark
Arya
Phoenix.
Stark, what's that?
She was Dark Phoenix.
Oh God. Oh my God. She was in a very big franchise and I totally forgot her. That's not a great sign. Oh my God. How
That's
many
not
people
great.
listening right now are screaming at their iPods?
That's so true. Yeah. People are probably like, oh my God, these guys don't know what they're talking about. She's been in a lot of stuff.
Oh shit. So forgettable in those movies. That's
a
see,
shame.
so hopefully she can break that bad habit. She's a much more mature actor now, so
Yeah.
my God, Jonathan, good thing you Googled that. On
right.
top of this, by the way, yeah, so Arya Stark, who I think also has kind of gotten pigeonholed, they tried to put her in a Marvel movie and it didn't really take off. She's in New Mutants, right?
I liked that movie too. I thought it was pretty
It just
good.
didn't go anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have not watched it yet. What did you think about the magic character in there?
I
one
don't
with the
remember which
sword.
ones are which.
Played by Queen's Gambit.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. She was one of my favorite characters. Yeah. So, when did that movie come out? Like 7 years ago? 6 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a bit. It's been a bit. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but yeah, I remember her because either just before or after that, Queen's Gambit came out, and I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that chick from that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was great. I liked all the characters in it, really. I remember thinking though it would have probably done better as a series. Just like I think we're just used to digesting content in series form, and we want bulk versus sitting for 2.5 hours to watch just one story and then be done with it. So yeah, I think that would have been their best bet if they broke it up into even just a mini series.
Unfortunately, it didn't take off. So Arya kind of not really doing a lot right now. But George R. R. Martin teased that he's going to be working on a new series, which, like, of course you are. They're not going to release a book that we've all been asking for 20 years.
Right.
Whatever. I'm not jarred about that at all. But yeah, a series about Arya Stark, which I think there is a lot of story to tell there. Somebody who is,
that'd be good.
A woman with no name and anything like that. That'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got next, John?
Moving on, we got Denzel Washington is now joining the Black Panther movie. I really haven't heard much about this. Do you know who he's going to be playing in that? What kind of character
don't know. I have a feeling like if I were to pick Denzel Washington for anything, especially like next week, we're going to be watching. Yeah, we're going to be watching Gladiator 2 next week, and all the images from that of him in there. I'm like, oh, this guy's in charge, and so now I kind of have that stuck in my head. I hope he's in charge of a rival African nation that wants to take Wakanda.
Yeah, I've been lied to by trailers though, so I'm hoping he's a big character and not just a cameo that they splice from 5 different angles to be able to, use a lot of ad time with it or something.
I've been lied to by trailers.
Oh God, yeah. Sometimes. Wow. I shouldn't talk so bad about movies. I love going to the movies. Me and you went to one where it was just like that was nothing like the Argyle. That's it. Yeah, like that's nothing like what the trailer looked like. What the heck?
Purposely, I kind of warned you on that one though, because I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to be. Yeah. But yeah, I think he'll be a leader of a rival tribe that's trying to take over Wakanda. Because right now they do have leadership, but they're not. It's shaky at best. They just survived Namor. I could see that happening. And then what I really liked is there was an award ceremony where Chadwick Boseman, when he was obviously back in the day when he was first Black Panther, said like Black Panther wouldn't exist, the movie wouldn't exist without Denzel Washington paving that road, and it was a real big inspiration for Chadwick Boseman. So then to see Denzel Washington stepping in to kind of help carry the franchise forward without Chadwick, I think is a really good way to honor the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think this could take place in the past? It could be when the vibranium was first discovered in Wakanda, and they have to. It's going to be a power struggle no matter what of this rare material, figuring out what it can do, and then how do they unite their tribes together with it versus it just falling into war over power.
That's a very interesting idea. I don't see the MCU stepping back in time very often. It feels like that massive budget they put behind every movie has to, for some reason, always push together the MCU's phase stories, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do an old story, you have to basically be introducing a new character for I'm thinking Captain Marvel, like they did one in the 90s because the next movie was going to be her in Endgame. That was the only justification for that. So I don't know. What do you think Denzel Washington's gonna be doing in this?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping is it would take place. When Chadwick Boseman, I can't remember his when Black Panther's dad was taking taking over, becoming the ruler. Like either Denzel was with him and helped prop him up and unite the people together, as his ally or whatever, as one of his representatives, or he was his predecessor and he had to take him out to be able to unite the people or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because T'Challa's dad T'Chaka was in charge for a long time, and then before that was his grandfather who fought as Black Panther in World War II, which they're doing a video game for, and he's voiced by King Ezekiel, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, perfect. That's so perfect.
Cool. So we do have a rough timeline already of their history, though, so I didn't realize that.
Oh, it goes back a couple thousand years. So yeah, it's been a while.
Not like America, where we've only been here a couple 200 years.
We're pretty unique in that way, yeah. But yeah, I really think that he has that kind of statesman aura around him, and especially a villain. I think he would be a fantastic villain. That's like a political villain that they don't really know how to deal with, and that maybe his people. Like, could you imagine if like Wakandans believe that like Denzel Washington's character is the better leader, maybe, and then they're like, look, T'Challa's son can take over. He's of age now or whatever, and that would maybe sway people back. I'm just kind of spitballing here, and I already want to see this now for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to see more war between Wakandan people because like they deserve to be at peace at some point. But that does make sense that there's going to be this power vacuum, and the son at some point will be able to take over as the Black Panther, but he's not ready yet. So in the meantime, there's going to be political drama, which Denzel would be a great politician, pretty much.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I mean, some of the most popular Black Panther stories is all about, other nations trying to say that they have the claim over vibranium. So it could definitely be that, And then we have adamantium coming in with Captain America, the new Captain America movie, which could replace vibranium as the most important metal in the world. And so you could have something where, and I think this has happened kind of recently in the comics, where vibranium stops vibrating, where it stops becoming useful.
Oh, wow.
And so what if that happens? All of a sudden Wakanda is in serious trouble.
Destroyed, yeah.
Yeah.
And what if they find out this adamantium's, like maybe this would take place after it's discovered, and so they have to try to go secure it so that nobody else can make competing technology with what they have.
Yeah.
And they could argue like, you guys aren't prepared for this kind of power, so we need to take it and control it and regulate it, and you guys can advance a little bit slowly versus jumping to our level of technology and having World War III between yourselves before you're ready for it.
Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about some video game stuff. By the way, guys, I want to remind you guys there are timestamps in the description if you guys want to jump around. Later on, after we talk about video game stuff, we're gonna be talking about the Penguin series, as that has just wrapped, and Dune Prophecy. We're gonna kind of give a quick reaction to the first episode of that. But let's dig into some video game stuff, Jonathan. We have the Game Awards just announced their nominees, and we're not gonna dig into all of it because there are a lot of repeat names and stuff like that as expected. But I wanted to go right into the Game of the Year, which is the highest thing you could win over there. Our nominees are Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metamore ReFantazio. So, looking at this list, I will say it's all quite underwhelming. And none of these games are big movers and shakers. Black Myth Wukong is one of the probably the most pioneering of its kind, just because it's like China's first AAA title. Astro Boy was a surprise hit. Balatro, I cannot imagine winning this award. It's just solitaire and poker mixed together. It's really nothing. And yeah, I don't know. Do any of these even sound familiar to you? That somebody who does not play video games as much as I do any of those sound familiar to you?
No, not at all.
Exactly. They didn't break through the sound barrier into the mainstream, right? Yeah. So I cannot imagine any of these being an overwhelming success. And then there's a debate going amongst the fandom today. There was a rule change that allowed for expansions and DLCs to be included in the Game of the Year contest if they dramatically changed from the original game, if they added enough technological advancement or gameplay changes. So Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is actually an expansion to Elden Ring. And a lot of people, myself included, don't think that's quite right, because the foundation, the game itself that people are playing, is very much Elden Ring. You just added more to it. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that take?
Yeah, I agree with you, because as a fan, we don't want them. I like DLCs. I like when they grow a game a little bit afterwards and stuff like that. But we want them to make a new game like every couple years or something like that. Come out with something fresh and have competition versus we made it. It's great, and then like for example, a football game. We made Madden. It's amazing. Every year we're just gonna update what the players names are, and you're gonna pay a full price again to be able to play with the new names. Like that's ridiculous, and we want changes in gameplay and different upgrades to it and stuff like that. So yeah, I think by making it so DLCs are not considered for winning awards is better, because then the developers are going to have to actually create new games if they want to get these awards.
I want to add to that. I think one of the keys there is that it pushes for innovation, because when you're just going to, like, say you come out with a game like Elden Ring, which by far deserves the chance for Game of the Year, to add an expansion to that is not elevating. It's elevating the game itself, but it's not elevating the industry. We don't need necessarily more of that kind of game. But if you were like, hey, I'll give it to Belletro for trying something new, Astro Boy for bringing back a old school way of playing, this very old school platformer Spyro type game, that is something new. And I think that's where Game of the Year really should be shining. And, there are best ongoing games or best expansion stuff like that this could be nominated for, and absolutely win those. I just feel like when we elevate DLCs and expansions, it's telling the community, it's telling the industry there was nothing really good this year. And personally, I enjoyed games that are not on this list, including Dragon Age Veilguard, which I'm still currently playing, the World of Warcraft expansion, if you want to add an expansion, and there's been a few others, but like Star Wars Outlaw was not nearly as bad as everybody's saying it is. Many others. Satisfactory is a full release game this year. Is that available for this now? Because Satisfactory is the most addicting game I've seen on this entire list. That should count for something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. They can make a separate category that is for, expansions and updates and stuff like that.
There is one, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. There is one. It's just that they're saying that this one supersedes that as well beyond that and is now also a game itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. That's not fair, because then a game can win one year and release the following year an update and win the Game of the Year twice in a row. That just doesn't seem right. And it encourages them to release a half complete game so that they can get some money up front and then finish it and release the updated version afterwards. Like, no. We want a full game. Put all your cards on the table at once. And if you win, you win. If you don't, better try a little harder next time. Yeah.
You are so right. And that's becoming a thing where people are finally the studios, I feel like, are listening to the player base. So Dragon Age came out and they told people right away, there's not going to be an expansion to this. There's not going to be any DLCs for this. You got the game. And immediately people's reactions were like, well, now we kind of got used to expansions and DLCs. We would like to get those. And people realized, oh, wait a minute. No, this is a 70-hour game. We're good. You guys gave us enough game for our money. But on the adverse side of that, like, I love me some God of War. But that game you could beat in like 20 hours. So it's, it's okay, but it's a little bit less, right? It's definitely, I think that's probably the go-to length, but there are plenty of games that's 12. And if you're going to be spending $70 on a game, you could pick from 70 hours down to 12 hours. You feel cheated at 12 hours. And then when the DLC comes out and you have to pay another 30, you feel screwed over. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the problem right now with the fan base, is trying to figure out what is the value that we give to our time. And I don't know if that's necessarily put down in stone anywhere yet.
Yeah. And those games that come out like half completed, it drives me nuts, because like there's a good way to do that and a bad way. We've seen it done perfectly well with Satisfactory, where they release it early, you pay a smaller fee and you get to play it, and it's not complete. And you get to help, work with the developers and see their updates. And, they're communicating and building a strong fan base and a big community. There's a whole lot more bonding and camaraderie between the players. And then, finally, it's been years, but finally the full version comes out and we get to play it, and it's complete. It's cool. It's good. And, everybody else can check it out too. And if they didn't want to stumble through some, roadblocks or have their, factory deleted from an update, then don't worry. Now it's done. But yeah, I think that's the best way to go. I mean, if you release a game that's incomplete, somebody sees the name, they play a little bit, they don't like it. If they're trying to sell it as a complete game, well, then I wouldn't go back to it. If you told me this was a complete game and now I'm relying on DLCs or expansions to make it fun. No thanks. I don't play that game. Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Scott, who's been on the podcast a few times. He's a huge fan of Cyberpunk, and specifically the expansion that came out last year, Phantom of Liberty, I believe it's called. And he was saying, like, I wish this rule went in last year so Phantom Liberty had a chance. And what I'll say about that DLC and why I think it's like the best case scenario is Cyberpunk came out and it was disappointing for a lot of people. Many bugs. It could have gone through a beta, which that beta process that you're talking about, Jonathan, is just PC games can do that, really. Yeah. But it would have been nice for that game to experience that, right? To really hammer out everything and come out okay. Instead, it didn't. So CD Projekt Red, the developers of that game, and they're one of the better developers out there with their customers. And what they did is they went back to it, they hammered it out, they reworked the game, and then the DLC that came out, the expansion that came out, added far more elements to the game, added a whole new level of story. It fixed a lot of old things, and even if you didn't buy it, all those fixes were still in place. They still came out, and CD Projekt Red did it 100%. They deserve all the accolades they can get. I don't feel like that deserves Game of the Year because it's not necessarily a new game. You are building on a frame that already exists. Mm-hmm. As I've said that something just hit me. All Ubisoft games essentially are that way, right? Like the Assassin's Creed from one year is another Assassin's Creed, just a different color. But nevertheless, there is something to be said about launching a brand new game or just adding to a game that already exists. Yeah. All right. Speaking of a game that already exists that just keeps adding on, Warcraft. Warcraft celebrates 30 years and World of Warcraft celebrates 20 years. And they did this big event. And this was in lieu of BlizzCon, an event that we all freaking love here at the podcast that we go to. You are the only person who hasn't gone down yet, and we will fix that someday.
Hopefully
someday. We are going to Fan Expo in 2 weeks, guys. So check us out on social media. We'll be sharing Fan Expo stuff. So I'm going to be going over the big announcements for World of Warcraft and why the entire fan base has been electrified this week, Jonathan. So I'm going to end with the big news, but I'll go over some of the other things, the smaller things real quick. First off, we have Hearthstone, which is the card game, the digital card game that's based around World of Warcraft. They're adding four StarCraft decks. So you can play with StarCraft stuff, and it's just a nice little nod to one of the older Blizzard franchises that hasn't gotten a lot of love lately. Mm-hmm. And you can play as Kerrigan from the Zerg, and you can play as Protoss. It's 3, not 4. 3 decks.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just
like, hey, just so you guys know, we didn't forget we have StarCraft here, so it's still a viable IP that we own.
And Phil Spencer, who bought the company, or his Xbox bought the company, that was one of the things he told us at the last BlizzCon. He's like, I personally am a StarCraft fan. I will make sure we have more StarCraft coming. Like, good to hear. That's good. Surprised announcement and release the day that they were announcing everything is they remastered Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. 30-year-old game, Warcraft 1. And it is an old school RTS, like StarCraft, but medieval, Mm-hmm. And the graphics are rough, but they did remaster it, so it runs well. And the graphics are, from a 2 to a 3. It's a 30-year-old game, guys. But yeah, it's definitely an upgrade. This is nothing that we didn't expect, but the next classic game that's coming out is going to be Mr. Pandaria Classic. So if you guys love one of the best character designed expansions in the history of World of Warcraft, we're going to be able to return to Pandaria. And also they're going to be opening new servers for classic players where you could start from day one again on World of Warcraft, playing the old vanilla ones, and they'll stay that way. So they won't be getting any upgrades. We have a new expansion coming up where we're going to be heading out and helping out 4 different goblin factions. And the goblins are really going to get a highlight for this, but you're going to be dealing with different cartels and kind of managing different cartels. And we're going to get a new sweet ride that you can customize and have a drift and all kinds of stuff like that. It's going to be really fun. And now, the biggest news that has every World of Warcraft content creator losing their mind. And we've been asking for this for at least, I know, of 18 years. We've been asking for this feature in World of Warcraft and they have not delivered it. It is player housing. You will now have a house in World of Warcraft that you can customize, make yourself, fill it with all your exploits inside. It will be you owning a piece of Azeroth, the content, a piece of Azeroth that you own and something you've been protecting over the last 20 years.
That's so cool. So I don't know about like non-WoW players, but everybody that plays WoW, that's like the metaverse just came real now. Like you can live inside WoW. You can have your own place, decorate it, invite people over, whatever. Like,
Yep.
especially if they keep expanding on that, I'm sure they'll have
Oh,
all
yeah.
kinds of cool stuff you can put in your house. That's freaking awesome. That's the
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't really affect the story of the game or by much, but it
Yeah.
affects your casual playing in that world by so much.
And we've been seeing it pop up in other games,
Mhm.
player housing, like WildStar, which was brutally underrated game,
Mhm.
had some of the best player housing, and for a lot of people became the gameplay. It's just decorating your house.
Yeah.
And a lot of games kept putting this in. And we look at Sea of Thieves. I like to look at that as a good example for this because we all get ships in Sea of Thieves, and you could kind of change the sails on it and stuff like that. Pretty neat. But now you can name your ship. You can, the color scheme and everything like that will stay. You can put personal decorations on there that represent the accomplishments you've done. And now that ship means so much more. So when it sinks, it's really sinking,
Yeah.
and that sucks. So now when you're defending Azeroth, you're like, hey, that's where my house is located. There's a little bit more stakes in the game because now you feel like you're actually a part of Azeroth in a new way,
And when there's like big battles, there can be like events where it's a natural disaster kind of event.
Yeah.
Like this boss is bringing with him tornadoes. So if you don't want your house destroyed, you have to be there that day to fight it and help defend it. That's so cool.
Little things where like, oh man, everything got knocked off the wall. Little things like that, just fun little games and stuff. And then there's holiday events where you could probably decorate your house. One of the things that I think, so World of Warcraft is at its strongest when it reflects back on its, again, 20 years of being a game.
Man.
And we've gone through so many stories, and some of the best stories. We have a new podcast coming out that's going to be focused on those stories. And for when Transmog came out, it's the ability to change your armor to look like anything you've collected in the past. So then people would dive back into old dungeons, 15, 20-year-old dungeons, to find pieces and stuff like that forgotten in time to then wear that. And that became a new activity in World of Warcraft. And there are certain pillars in World of Warcraft that keep the game going. PvE, dungeons, raids, stuff like that.
It like created a fashion industry, really, because before it was always about the stats, but now it's like, well, stats can be, carried over, so I can actually wear something that looks cool too.
Well, suddenly the game just added an entire new industry into the game. What if you could go back into Shadowkeep and find a chair you like, or a tapestry you really like, or whatever, and you go back and run that dungeon hoping that the boss drops maybe the plans. You don't necessarily need to get the furniture, but maybe the plans to how to build that chair that you like at his throne. Suddenly people are running old content and taking advantage of, again, 20 years of history. I think this is the best thing that World of Warcraft could have announced and revitalized the fan base that was already slowly coming back after they had a real big dip in Shadowlands. Dragonflight was a real big redemption for them. They've turned to listening to the fans more. This was huge. This was really huge in our corner of the world, and people are very excited about the game right now.
Yeah, I think that's freaking awesome.
So now we just need Jonathan to come back to World of Warcraft.
I know, it's tempting too. My son now, he goes to preschool, so I have, a little bit of time with the house empty. I don't feel so guilty, but one of these days I'll get back into it.
When you come back, what I think you should do is just make a level 1, and I'll make a level 1 with you, and we'll just do some quests and we'll slowly open that world up. We don't need to get you doing some crazy shit.
Yeah, it'll take a lot to. I definitely need training wheels for a while.
Yeah, there's a lot out there now. Let's go ahead and get into our reviews for the week. Jonathan, we're going to start with The Penguin. I had a blast with this series.
Such a phenomenal series.
Yeah. Can you give us your take on Penguin? Go ahead and go full spoilers, by the way. So, guys, just warning, spoilers for Penguin, no spoilers for Dune. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just, an awesome show. It's so dark and gritty. It's obviously it carries on after the Batman, the new Batman movie. And we see, clips from it, like the flooding of the city and stuff like that, and the recovery efforts. But they do such a good job at making you kind of root for villains and, show you kind of a softer side of them or a good side of them, and, or better yet, justification of why they are the way they are. And you start to really like them, and then they turn the knife, kind of like, then it's like, oh wait, no, that person is such a terrible person. I forgot about that. So it's back and forth. I don't know. I couldn't do a synopsis of the actual timeline just off the top of my head, but definitely, I mean, they build up such good characters and make you love them, and then kind of regret that you love them because you realize how terrible they are.
Yeah, what I like about this is you're rooting for two villains, right? But the villain in the story is oftentimes society, right? Because obviously they've turned Gotham has turned their back on Crown Point, which is the poorest area of Gotham, no power at all. And so when Penguin's coming in and offering people jobs, like Vic tells him, like, hey, you offer these guys jobs, that's dignity.
Yeah.
And that's something that Penguin looks back at his old neighborhood mob boss, which was Rex, and seeing like, hey, there's this guy that used to give us respect, and I miss that.
Yeah.
And so he's offering jobs and offering security and bringing the power back to Crown Point, and representing the little guy. You're rooting for Penguin this whole time.
Yeah.
And then if we look at Sophia Falcone, she comes in who was persecuted by her family, thrown into Arkham for 10 years, comes out and just shatters the status quo and says, look, we're not going to be playing by your rules anymore where you guys can get away with murdering women and stuff like that. We're going to play by these rules. And so you're rooting for these people. In the meanwhile, they're burning bodies and tearing down houses and stuff like that. It's just terrible, but you're rooting for them. And it's against the system and stuff like that. And then by the end, you're like, oh, that's right. I've been rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah. Like when Sophia takes out the family, you're like, well, I mean, that was a lot of people that were in that house. Sure, they were kind of mean. They were personally mean to her, and she was in prison for 10 years. But like, damn, it was so cool how she did it. But damn, that was crazy.
At least she saved the kid. And you're kind of always justifying it, right? Like, at least she saved the kid. It shows she's not fully bad. But then when you fast forward a couple episodes and we start to see her more and more collapse and decline and stuff. And then when she goes and visits the kid again in foster care, you're like, wait, she's not necessarily the same person who saved the kid the last time they had a conversation. She might kill that kid this time. She didn't, luckily. Matter of fact, it was another turning point for her. But yeah, she did such an amazing job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any themes or anything like that you pulled from this show? Like we talked about, society being the villain, but kind of Arkham is also the villain, right? Because it made Sophia this, rich, stuck-up girl, but not necessarily a bad person, into a bad person.
Well, I like how we've seen through her, we've seen a lot of what we see in Joker, where their insanity is actually just clarity, and the people around them, the city around them, is what's really insane, and they're just trying to expose it, and by whatever means necessary, usually crazy stuff. But yeah, it's actually just they're reflecting what the chaos of the city really is, like exposing it.
And then I think there's something to be said about fatherhood and mentorship. We see Vic who sees validation in Penguin in Oz, who's constantly telling him like, look at me up here, and he's scolding anybody who interrupts his stuttering. And there again, that validation could be very manipulating if used incorrectly. That mentorship, but it's God, for a moment there, it was actually giving Vic hope, and like he even turned away his girlfriend for that life. So
we were hopeful for him. So that was one of the biggest ones where you totally get built up thinking like, oh man, this kid's going to be his right hand. Like, man, I don't remember Penguin having a right hand man, but this guy's going to be so good at it. Yeah. I don't know how much spoilers we want to give away. But
let's go into it. Go ahead. Explain what happens.
The Penguin, I mean, after such a good arc and everything, and they're bonding and sitting by the lake and stuff like that. And I don't remember how he says it, but he's pulling him under his wing and stuff. But he says like, well, yeah, but you can't go on this next one with me. And he kills him right there on the side of the lake. Like, oh man.
What was your immediate reaction for that?
So pissed off.
Yeah.
I was like, but I mean, you realize like, damn it. I know I'm rooting for a terrible person. Yeah. But I thought these two can at least be terrible together. Like he was doing so good together. And yeah.
There's a thing where I'm like pissed off at Penguin. I'm pissed off at the showrunner, and I'm pissed off at me for trusting him.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. You start to trust him. But then he goes back to his girlfriend, who now that Oz is successful, she's willing to stay around a little more and kind of trust him a little more, at least, while he's so successful. And it's like, well, fuck, she's the next one, and his mom's the next. Nobody can be around him and be close because they're a liability. Yeah. So he can't care about anybody, or he's going to have to kill him. We see that. I think that was kind of the realization with Vic, is like, man, he's starting to like this kid, and he sees that he has a lot of potential and stuff like that. But the fact that he likes him means if something happens and he gets snatched up or whatever, it's going to weaken him. Mom. So yes, just get rid of him now. Yeah.
Like, he would never have put in that situation with Sophia if it wasn't for his mom. So I think he kind of realizes like, I can't do that. And then I just actually rewatched the series last night too. And his mom, who her name, Frances Cobb, played by Deirdre O'Connell. What a masterful performance, and a person I can't stand. I hate his mom so much.
Yeah.
So manipulative. Again, we see all that manipulation he puts down on Vic he got from his mom, right? Who was very much like, oh, you'll take care of me. She knew the whole time and stuff.
Yeah.
But she asked him, like, don't let me be a vegetable looking out a window. And the final scene we see with her is like, enjoy your big window, you know, and she's crying and stuff. And it was like, I'm mad at her, but also like, just kill her. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's so sad, so brutal.
God, and the whole thing with him and I love that episode, but with him and his brothers and how he just like closed the door. He knew that they were drowning or potentially going to be dying out there. And it's like so twisted, but I like how that builds so much depth into his character, like why he is the way he is. Yeah, it's just crazy.
The performances all around, I think, are really good. Christine Milioti, Colin Farrell, Renzi Felice, that's that right there is Sophia, Oswald, and Victor. I think those three are going to be seen as Emmy contenders for sure. Especially Colin underneath all that makeup and all that heavy. I mean, what a masterful job he did in this
Definitely,
show.
Yeah. I'm sure he's gonna win something. I just saw recently that Renzi Felice, who plays Victor in this, was actually the voice of one of the characters in Encanto. You remember the cousin that was a shapeshifter?
Oh, no way.
Yeah. He does.
That's dope. I like that kid.
Yeah. He, especially in that song, We Don't Talk About Bruno, he's got, one of the better lines in it.
Yeah.
With the rats on his back and all that stuff. He impersonates Bruno.
Yeah. God, that's a good show.
So I was like, what the heck? That's crazy.
And he does not stutter in real life. I mean, I think that's probably predictable. But he had a voice coach that was teaching him how to stutter properly. And that was actually something people have been applauding, is how he's stuttering the way people who stutter would. So accurately. And right. So like when he's alone, you don't see him stuttering. But when he's trying to deliver a line to somebody else, he does stutter, and he stutters in the right words. A shout out to the voice acting on that. Side characters as well: Michael Kelly, Clancy Brown, Theo Rossi, who plays Dr. Julian Rush. A lot of people are noticing that on his desk, and he's the therapist for anybody. On his desk is the glove and the mask for Scarecrow. So I think we might have our next villain we're going to be focusing on.
I like it. So do you think they're going to continue to do movies in the Batman, universe, and they'll kind of bounce back and forth?
And Colin Farrell said he already filmed 5 scenes for Batman 2.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
And this time he's going to be full Penguin. He's got the suit now, and he's got his top hat. He's going to be full on Penguin now.
You know what I love about this is I don't see this as competition with the MCU. This is what we've talked about for so long. We want to see DC kind of do this darker, grittier, more, true stories. And, MCU can stay in the fantasy and superhero genre. That's great. But this is, I think, a better fit for DC.
I'm going to double down on you, Jonathan. This isn't competing with DC either, because James Gunn is making another Batman movie that's going to be the one that's competing against the MCU. And this one is still going to be allowed to keep making their movies. So we're getting 2 versions of Batman, and one grounded, and one will be Batman with his Robins and family. Like, we're getting 2 versions of this. So we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, we got 2 boats. See which one doesn't sink.
yeah, exactly. Some days you want to be on a speedboat. Some days you want to be on a luxury boat. We're all good.
That's good.
This was it was so well done. The setting, it felt like Gotham. That's something that Squeeze called out in the first episode. There's something about seeing those trains that are elevated above everybody that just feels like Gotham to you. It's like that Chicago look. It felt like Chicago. It felt like Gotham. It felt like the citizens there. It was just crazy enough to exist. What would you give this out of 10, Jonathan?
It can't be far from a 10 out of 10. It was such a good show. I mean, for HBO, I can't imagine this not being like another tentpole for them now. I mean, everybody knows Game of Thrones is a huge one, but I mean, I would put this at least just below Game of Thrones. If this had as many seasons and all that stuff, then sure, it'd probably be a contender, but one season to another, I think it's right up there. So I'd at least do like a 9 or 9.5 out of 10.
You know what, man? Go with 10.
Let's go 10 out of 10.
I can't think. I'm sitting here trying to think of what I don't like about this show, and I can't. I watched it twice. I cannot think of a thing I don't like about it. That ending is so disappointing, but I'm more disappointed with myself than I am with anybody else, honestly. Because I'm like, thank God when they pulled out, you see the bat signal. Because that was so needed, because you're like, oh, good, someone's going to kick his ass in a second.
Right?
Oh, but
yeah, I can't think of anything they really did wrong. I mean, there's obviously topics and stuff like that that are disturbing, but that's how dirty and gritty the
That's how you
streets
share
are.
it, yeah. And I think this is a really good way of showing like the morality too of, the little man versus, because it's kind of, when we talk about this often about sci-fi, where they talk about social problems through the lens of sci-fi, so that you're like, oh, this is just a Star Trek show, but then you're like learning about racism.
Yeah.
This one, learning about the class disparity and stuff like that. I think this is a good way of showing that, like through a Batman universe, because Batman's not the right character to show you that. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Penguin is the right guy to show you this in this process, anyways.
We kind of talked about it with Star Wars, but I love how this is going to show us a perspective where now when Batman comes in and he stops the bad guys, well, he's also taking away a bunch of jobs, though he's breaking up, a drug business. He's taking away a bunch of jobs, and these families are going to struggle, and maybe their neighborhood won't have electricity for another week because of it and stuff like that. Batman doesn't see the suffering of the people. He just sees the crimes that are going on, and he follows the law, even though he uses vigilante justice.
That's why Batman's the best, dude. All his villains are everything about them is like, it could be written into huge novels about how big their stories are, with the complexity that they deserve. And meanwhile, there are a lot of superheroes out there. I'll say Superman's more complex than people give him credit for, but there are a lot of people who are just like, yeah, that guy's a bad guy who wants to take over Earth.
Yeah.
These guys don't want to like destroy Gotham. They need Gotham. The reason Joker is so fun is because he's not anything else like the other Batman villains. He is the one that's just destroyed Gotham. Is fine. I want chaos. So there's something special with this show. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Definitely deserves that.
All right.
Let's talk about Dune Prophecy. Going to keep the spoil free. This is the first episode that came out. 6-part series. And you have not had a chance to watch this yet, correct?
I have not, no, but I'll probably watch it tonight.
Okay. I will tell you, it is a slow burn. This is a very slow show. It loses you a little bit. I actually dozed off a bit. I think that's because it's setting up so many things. And when I have wrote a lot of notes for it. We're going to do a challenge accepted for it as well. It reminded me of those really good sci-fi shows that would come out every so often. I'm trying to think of one like Skyfall or whatever. Remember that one that was like about the aliens?
Or
really
Under the
good.
Dome.
It's like,
those kind of things.
Under the Dome, that came out. Yeah, that was kind of a Stephen King thing. But like the first episode, so much setup that it's like, okay, this is gonna get cooking eventually. I know that. Right now, it's just dumping this stuff on me. But this one has a far better budget. It feels like HBO. The setting, the sets, the CGI, top notch. So I love that about it. The characters I'm invested in. There's one of them. I just don't have my notes with me. I'm such a dork. One of them I think was, nope, I don't have it there either. Desmond, there he is. Desmond, I think, is going to be a real fun character to follow. He's a mysterious character. We know he fails because this takes place 10,000 years before the Bene Gesserit. And he's trying to stop the Bene Gesserit. And we know they're still in Dune, so he doesn't do it. But yeah, and he's played by Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings. And I was like, I love that dude. Yeah. Any questions about Dune Prophecy, Jonathan?
So do you see, I know we're probably going to need 2 or 3 episodes to really get a good feel for this series. Cause like you're saying, I understand too, it's such a big world. And I think we're going to see a lot of like political drama we've seen before, I guess, in the Dune movies too, but hopefully a little bit deeper. But that means there's going to be a lot to establish. But already from this first episode, do you think this can be a Game of Thrones size series? Like, are they trying to scale it that big, do you think? Like, are they putting down the roots for that?
I could see that, but we're going to need to see some promised action. We don't get any action in this. Yeah. So we're going to need to see some of that. Like, we get, like, twists and turns, sure, but a lot of the... But that's kind of the highlight of the earliest Game of Thrones, right? Where the conversations in the room. Yeah. That's what this all is that.
Okay. Yeah, some of those, like, Littlefinger conversations and stuff are so pivotal in the story, and, you just kind of... It's not the explosions and the big battles and stuff, but it's like, man, that's where the drama's really at sometimes.
And this could be setting it up. And they do a really good job. I know I did not read Dune Sisterhood, which is what this is based off of, but they make sure to drop the names Harkonnen and Atreides a lot. You're getting a lot of the names you recognize, even though it's 10,000 years beforehand. And of course, something's going on Arrakis. There's big worms all the time. It's amazing how this one planet, because it has the spice, is just so important for 10,000 years. And it's, I gotta say, I highlighted this. Sorry to total break my mind here. This is 110 years after they destroyed all thinking machines. So machines with computers that can do their own AI stuff. And that is a bigger thing than I thought they were good. They're focusing on. I'll do one little spoiler, but a kid has a little toy robot lizard, and one of them kills it, and it is like, how dare you? How does that even exist? Like, it's heresy.
Really?
And I was like, oh, explore that. That's interesting. I didn't even think about that, because in the future, in Dune, you have like the Mentets and the human computers and the people who stuff like that. That's exactly what these people are for, is for telling the truth out of people. You don't want a computer doing that. So it's cool to see kind of the early stages of them adjusting to this new world.
So I wonder if that's built into their religion at that point. It seems like with a reaction like that this distrust of technology must be like, that's blasphemy for you to interact with intelligent technology. Our God says that makes you impure, kind of a thing, or something like that.
It's less the religion, but more like the founding fathers are. That you could tell, like Atreides, such a very popular house, was the leader of the army that took over the robots.
Okay.
And the Harkonnens, a hated house, was one that was seen as a coward during the battles against the robots. So like, it's definitely part of like how we would talk about George Washington and Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
So when you see something like that, it's like somebody who's saying like burning American flag kind of thing like that. It's like, what are you doing? So that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
It's got a lot of promise. Good. Yeah. And I have more questions than I had answers, which can be a good thing, but it's the same thing that was said about Star Wars Acolyte pretty early on, and I never got shit answered.
Yeah. This might have been a good series for them to drop the first 2 episodes together.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. But there's only 6 episodes in this entire season.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
Brutally short.
Are they going to get us hooked by the end of the 6th episode, and then we're going to have to wait like 2 years for another season?
I'm going to watch Dune again, which is... Dune, I think, might be longer than... Dune 1 and 2 is going to be longer than the 6 episodes.
Yeah, for sure. Those are definitely...
Oh, man. But so far, I'm really enjoying it, guys. If I were to throw a grade out there, I would say a 7, because, again, it is pretty hollow, or not hollow, so open-ended. There are so many more questions than anything else. It's a lot of setup, but I really love the world that they're setting up. So I'm going to give it a 7 right now, and I can't wait for that to go up, and I hope it doesn't go back down. Yeah. All right, we are going to be closing things out, Jonathan, with our recommendations of the week. I will start things off, since I know that you're probably going to be thinking about it for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching Arcane, and we're going to do a review for Arcane once all the episodes are out, which is, I think, next week. But people are starting to get interested in this world and all the cool lore that's behind it. Well, lucky for you, League of Legends has a ton of it, and that's what that show's based off of. And so I would like for you guys to check out the multiple League of Legends comic books. You can play the game itself, but the game itself doesn't have a ton of lore in it. But there's comic books, there are books about it, and specifically my favorite kingdom to follow up on is Demacia. There are, I want to say it's 9 kingdoms, big kingdoms in this game, or regions, and Demacia is very much your medieval, shining paladin warriors type of kingdom, where they outlawed magic and they nullify people's magic and stuff like that. And then Garen, who is like he's my favorite character to play, but he's also like the head general, is constantly fighting against Noxus. And I believe it's his sister that has magic and is trying to hide it, but uses it well. And she's a mage. It's a wonderful story full of lore. So if you like Arcane, which is just one city, then I think you're going to love the rest of League of Legends and the very complex cities that are out there. So just start checking that out, guys. Explore the world of Runeterra, which is the world of League of Legends.
Nice. For me, I don't think I've been watching anything new recently. Watching old Star Trek again and stuff like that. Waiting for another good show to come up. But I do have one on the horizon I can't wait to see. It looks really good. If you like Yellowstone, which there's more Yellowstone coming soon too, it looks like this would be right up your alley. It's called Landman. It's on Paramount Plus with Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah. That looks a lot like a kind of a Yellowstone spinoff, if nothing else. Very similar vibe. So I'm hoping it's good. I think it might be coming out this week.
I think it is. I've been seeing a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So check that out. Let me know. I'm probably gonna watch it soon, whenever I can.
I loved him in Fargo season 1 so much.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, what a good bad guy.
Yeah.
So I'm always down for some more Billy Bob. Yeah, actually he just did an interview, I believe, with Stephen Colbert. So that show's coming out this week then.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
All right, guys, Landman, and check out Runeterra, the rest of the world from Arcane. And thank you very much for hanging out with us. Let's go over a real quick thing. We're going to be at Fan Expo in 2 weeks. So if you guys are headed to San Francisco Fan Expo, hit us up so we can meet up and chit-chat about all things geek. And we're also doing the Pet Pantry. We're raising money for the Elk Grove Animal Shelter. Link in the description if you'd like to join us there. And then we're also spreading awareness of Beauty's Biscuits, which are wonderful homemade dog treats. And matter of fact, I know mine are delivered right now. I just saw the mailman come up on the cameras. And they're made by Sunny. They're great dog treats that your dogs will love. And if you use code GeekFreaks, you get 20% off your order. It is, even without the discount code, it's very, very affordable. So check that out, guys. All right, thank you very much for hanging out with us this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.